What time are they? 2:10? So we just supposed to start or just? I got a time here. I just wanted to make sure it was okay to start. Go? All right, well, thank you everybody for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Doug Jensen, and kind of a special day as I was thinking about preparing for this innovation conference and thinking about what were the key factors that were coming into play. When we think about what do we got to do to inspire students, the other thing is we need to focus on is how do we get students career ready at the same time, and more importantly, how do we start to manage the cost of higher education and the impact that cost is having on students. The other factor is how do we accomplish all three of those at one time, and then how do we prepare people for a very dramatically changing economy for our students as they graduate. So the key here is you think about what are the whys and the how to make this happen. So that's what I'd like to talk with you about today, is why are those three things so important, and how can we go about preparing individuals for that. So as I mentioned, my name is Doug Jensen. I'll be glad to take some questions at the end of the presentation. If not, Juanita is here. We can send you information if that will help you. So as you might be aware, BSC, Bismarck State College, in 2018 was given an expanded mission to become North Dakota's Polytechnic institution. And why is that so important? If you look at the bottom of the slide right here, you see two focal points. You see the focal point of the student, and you see the focal point of the employer. And this is critical, because as we start looking at what is a polytechnic institution, it puts the focus on the student, and it puts the focus on the employer. We look at the student from a talent perspective. We look at how we have all this talent that is in our area that is growing. When I mean students, I mean K to 12 as well as adults. But we also have a lot of opportunity in our region because of the employers. And whether that's in energy, whether that's in healthcare, engineering, agriculture, cybersecurity, etc. There's a lot of opportunity here for our students to continue to grow and develop the skills that they need for these job opportunities. But the key for us is to try to make education affordable, to make it flexible, and to also make it transferable. How do we put students on a pathway that will allow them to be successful and continue to grow? Some of you may have heard of this ratio that exists. There's a person by the name of Kevin Fleming, and Kevin talks about a ratio that exists in an economy. And he basically says for every professional credential we have in our community, we have 2 baccalaureate individuals and we have 7 highly skilled technical individuals to support those. So he uses a ratio of 1 to 7. I don't like that ratio, and I've talked to Kevin about this a couple of times. I prefer to reverse the ratio, 7 to 1. Communities are really built off of 7s. Communities are built off of individuals that go onto a career pathway, and maybe will start off as a person pursuing an associate degree, going on to get their baccalaureate degree, pursuing a master's degree, and maybe even pursuing doctoral or other professional credentials. So this ratio is very important for us, especially at Bismarck State College. As North Dakota's Polytechnic institution, we prepare people for our 7s, we prepare people for careers that are 2s, and we can also help people go on and pursue to become professional credentials as well. So how do we go about this? The key for us is this pinwheel diagram that I'm talking about here. On the outside of the pinwheel, you'll see basically 5 major areas of focus for BSC: manufacturing, cybersecurity, energy, healthcare, and agriculture. These are the 5 major pillar programs that we have right now, but it does not mean this is where we stop. It means that this is the beginning of what we're building out. The challenges that we're facing is in all of these careers, there's a set of standards referred to as Industry 4.0 standards. And these standards represent these skill sets that employers are facing in the 4th industrial revolution. They're also a set of skill sets we need to start preparing our learners for so they'll be successful in the 4th industrial revolution. The challenge is that the 4th industrial revolution is almost over, and we're moving towards the 5th industrial revolution. So what we try to show with this diagram right here is that these 8 skill sets that are going around here are foundational to all of these particular programs, but they're more importantly, they're foundational to the programs that we will be exploring and need to develop in the very near future to meet the ever-changing economy. The next thing we talk about is, a lot of you have heard about soft skills. They talk about soft skills, and what are those other skills other than STEM skills that individuals need to be successful? And we start looking at those from entrepreneurship, and we start looking at what are the arts. If we look at STEM, that's one aspect, but if we look at STEAM, how do we integrate the arts into those skill sets? And we start looking at this foundational skill set as needed as well. They're also part of all 5 of our pillar programs. So you'll see things like problem solving, teamwork, leadership, reliability, initiative. You start looking at critical thinking or critical reasoning skills, communication, planning and organization. These are all relied upon in the modern day workplace as well, and we have to start preparing our individuals, learners for these types of skills as they enter the employment market. So when we start tying that to our K-12 partners and our partnerships here at BSC through our Polytechnic institution and partnering with our K-12 in terms of either dual credit or early entry, we start looking at how does this progression need to occur in a timely manner so students will be prepared upon graduation to achieve this. The important part is, if you look at that ratio 7-to-1, the earlier we can start integrating college degrees or college courses into the high school experience, where students can walk across the stage at high school at the same time they are receiving a college degree, is ultimately the goal. College I came from in Illinois, we had over 200 students a year that were graduating with an associate degree of arts or an associate degree in science at the same time they were achieving their high school diploma. The impact of that is pretty profound. You look at the cost of that from a family perspective, you could save anywhere between 50 and 60% of the college education for that family, for that student. That student then comes out with less debt. That individual is now better prepared to achieve, to go into the workforce, to be able to invest in property, to be able to invest in business opportunities, to be able to pursue a doctor or a graduate degree if they need to. So the key then it becomes, well, how do you do this? This is great, Doug. These are nice slides. We're all aware of this, but how do we make this really work, and how do we make this possible for students? So the slide here that I'm going to go through 2 of these examples for you today. One is in an area of mechatronics, and one is in the area of cybersecurity we'll talk about. The word mechatronics, has anybody heard the term mechatronics before? It's a form of engineering, and it integrates 4 things into engineering. It looks at mechanical systems, electrical systems, it looks at automation, and it looks at controls. But it does all 4 of those at one time. So you would ask, what is a simple mechatronics example or a simple mechatronics solution that I could offer to you? If you walk into the restroom facilities here in our event center, you'll probably find a faucet or a spigot that you walk up to. Think about these 4 terms as we talk about the importance of this. Manufacturing, or mechanical systems, electrical systems, control systems, and coding. The faucet is in an autonomous state. It is sitting there does not require it to be turned on. It does not require manual intervention. It is sitting there waiting to be used. It receives a signal, an electrical sensor. That sensor then sends a signal to 2 mechanical valves. The mechanical valves will then open. There are sensors in the mechanical valves that regulate 2 things, temperature and flow. It then goes into an equilibrium. It kind of monitors that and disperses the water outside, out of the spigot into your hands. It'll continually monitor itself, and it'll check itself. It'll make corrections until the signal is stopped. Once the signal is stopped, the mechanical valves shut down, the sensors go back to a steady state of equilibrium, waits for the next input, and the system then is in a steady state. Mechatronics is going to be one of the key engineering technical skill sets for the future. So how do we start using this need and developing this skill set for high school students so that they can come out of high school with mechatronics skills already obtained. So if you look on the left-hand side of our drawing here, what you'll see is the Industry 4.0 credentials. You look at the very bottom, you'll see the employer input, and you'll see that this basically is formed by developing public-private partnerships. The key for us is if you look on that left-handed side, you'll see a blue box. It's kind of underneath that keystone right there, and it says Mechatronics Systems Operator. It is a 16-credit certificate. Why is 16 credits so important? 16 credits makes it financially aidable. So students then have access to financial aid if they want to pursue this. The other aspect is 16 credits. If you look at 3 16-credit certificates, it totals up to 48 credits. Those 48 credits then could be added to your 15 to 17 credits of gen eds, and a person can get an associate degree in applied technology, and they can have 3 specialties. It might be Mechatronics 1, it might be Mechatronics 2, it might be Mechatronics 3. It might be Mechatronics 1, Supervisory Management, and Cybersecurity. It might be Marketing, it could be Mechatronics 1, and it could be a welding certificate. So the student could build the certificate of associate however they want to build it. So what this drawing is trying to show you is that first 16 credit certificate, a student can pass that certificate. They can do it while they're in high school. They could take 4 credits in the fall of their junior year, 4 credits in the spring of their junior year, 4 credits in the fall of their senior year, and 4 credits in the spring of their senior year, have all 16 credits completed, and be able to graduate from high school with a certificate. If the student is very prepared and there's time in the schedule, the students could do the 8 credits in their fall of their junior year, 8 credits in the spring of their junior year, and have the first certificate completed, and they could also do the same sequence of 8 credits in their senior year and be able to have a second certificate. And that can be built out as far as we want to build it out. The other thing is that 16 credits from a higher education perspective is about 750 minutes per credit. It's a lot easier to start looking at that 16 credits and even breaking it down into 16 one-credit modules, where a student then can take the individual credits, and then we could put the credits back together to make sure that they have the credits that they need, or you can put them back from 4 one-credit courses to make it a 4-credit course. We're already working with high schools in our area here, where we're taking this model and providing it to the high schools to give them the curriculum, and they're planning on starting to offer some of this next fall. The key as you start looking here is that this not only builds out to an associate degree in at BSc, but you can also ladder it on to becoming a 4-year engineering program. Now here's another model that we've heard the governor speak about today, and this was part of a lot of our conversations, is about cybersecurity, the impact of cyber, the impact of digital world that we're merging into. 60% of the jobs in the future will require some type of coding, and we need to start looking at this model. So here is an example where we look at that bottom left-hand certificate, and we started that this year as a 16 credits in mobile app development. Bismarck State College has gone to the State Board of Higher Education, and we have this approved, and we have now a 16-credit mobile apps development certificate that we can provide to high schools, and the high schools can start to integrate that credit into their schedule. So a student upon graduation could end up with a certificate in mobile apps development. If you look across there, you'll see other certificates. You'll start to see ones for security and hacking. You'll start seeing ones about networking defense systems. Not only has BSc gone forward and received approval to offer the 16-credit mobile apps, we've gone forward and we've asked for 5 additional certificates to be approved, and we have 10 more that are on the works right now. So a student will be able to mix and match however they want these short-term certificates to build the career path that they want to build. The nice thing about this cyber one that you'll see on here is it goes all the way out to a Bachelor's of Applied Science in Cybersecurity Technologies, but it's 100% online. That means that students can take it basically from anywhere. But let's digress for a second. Let's talk here just for a moment about the rural school districts. Well, what happens if we have, a lot of our educators would say, well, we don't have 15 students that can take this class. Our school district's not set up that way. Well, why could we not have 3 students from one school district, 4 students from another school district, 2 students from another school district? You could put all that together. You have an instructor of record that could be teaching that, so where the barrier might be coming into play with some of our school districts in terms of not having the certification for some of these, you could share that certification by having an instructor of record. This is another way that we can start bringing these types of technical courses to our K-12 partners. The other important part here is traditionally dual credit and early entry has been used to supply individuals with courses to prepare them for transfer to a 4-year university. We've also been looking at how can we do more dual credit or early entry in terms of CTE classes, which is another benefit to the school districts because at that point the certification requirements to teach some of these classes are different. And many of the faculty within the K-12 system would have those types of credits available. So the model here, once again, is to show you 2 examples, but to show you how this model can be built out. It can be done face-to-face. It can be done synchronous. It can be done asynchronous. It can be done between multiple school districts. It doesn't have to be confined by one school district. When I used to work a lot with superintendents when I was back in Illinois, one of the questions that frequently came up was one of the barriers to integrating college education so often was the bell schedule and the transportation schedule, the bus schedule. Well, by using some of these models, we can offset those impacts and provide more opportunities for our learners. So that's just to give you kind of a high-level presentation of how do we start looking at preparing our students for the future, where we can start to inspire them, where we can start to prepare them to become workforce ready quicker, where we can also then look at offsetting the cost of higher education, how we can do all these things simultaneously and give the students a pathway that is aligned with an industry-recognized credential that is supported by public-private partnerships and prepare our individuals with experiential learning so that upon graduation, they have a future opportunity that may have not been available to them in the past. So I will stop there and see if there's any questions or if I can go back to any slides if you'd like to see those. Juanita, I think, is present here somewhere. If anybody needs information, Juanita's hand's in here in the back. She has the white blouse on. And if you need the information, we can make sure that you get it. So I'd be glad to take any questions, or I can free you up so you can get some time between your next presentation. Yes, sir.
Thank you. So how do you manage to, well, one of the big problems with the cost is when people switch majors and things like that when they're in college. How do you match up with what the students are good at and what they enjoy with the careers that are available? Because I know just being aware of what's out there is a big issue right now.
Yes. I think this slide right here helps with part of that conversation if you can see this on your screens. It starts talking about early here about career exploration. If you have not seen this video, has anybody seen the video Success in the New Economy? If you go out and it's on YouTube or Vimeo, go out and Google it. It's 9 minutes long. I would really suggest that you take a look at that video to address the question that this man just raised here. It's very important from the perspective, if you are talking to a student right now, whether it is a student in your school, a family member, you're taking on the decision-making, helping somebody with decision-making around cost, it is critical that you watch this video. And what he talks about is engaging in career exploration. So those 2 certificates that we were talking about right here, the entrepreneurial and the Industry 4.0 credentials, we're creating an Industry 4.0 certificate. That's 16 credits. That model right there has those 8 areas. It has 16 credits. It's 1 credit of lecture and a lab component, so the student not only gets exposed to the academics of those points, those Industry 4.0 standards, but then they have an experiential learning activity that they need to go out and put that into practice. We're hoping that that process of experiential learning and engaging the student not only in the learning of these Industry 4.0 standards will help them, but it will also give them the experience to work with a professional or to work with somebody in the industry and help them solidify that this might be what they want to do, and if not, get them back on another pathway. And this will be the exact same thing for this entrepreneurial certificate. So this will be available as well. It'll be 16 credits, same model. It'll be a 1-credit lecture plus a lab. So a person could take the Industry 4.0 and maybe mobile apps development. That could be their 3 certificates that they could put together to build on that experience. But we think these 2 entry-level ones will give the individuals some of that experience that they need to make better decisions. Any other questions? Okay. Well, like I say, my name is Doug Jensen. If I can help you with any of this information, I have some business cards. If you would like to have some more of this, we got another message back here? Okay, I'm sorry.
Is BSC looking at the possibility of having more 4-year programs?
Yes, absolutely. We are going through our higher learning accreditation right now, and I'll let you finish your question. But one of the first steps we have to go through is our higher learning accreditation to get to that next level standard. We submitted that paperwork. I believe Dr. Langang was here. He did the paperwork for us. We have received preliminary approval. So we will be offering more 4-year degrees following this model of stackable certificates all the way up to the BAS, and also making it very experiential and applied education.
It sounds like it would be in the polytechnic areas specifically.
Yeah, a lot of those will be in the areas like engineering. There will be, we're looking at business, we're looking at medical, we're looking at a number of them, especially in the agriculture area as well. So a lot of these will apply as long as we keep the focus on the applied experiential learning as the model for our BAS versus, you know, the more the traditional ones where you're just looking at the credits and lab time. Yes, sir.
This might be more of a discussion afterwards, but as the state's looking at the competencies as a pathway to graduation for high school, is this going to intermesh and mingle to where we can work together to create some of those competencies at the same time in the smaller rural schools?
Absolutely. I think that's the key, especially for some of the cyber ones we've looked at. That information has been shared with me by DPI and also by Wade 6 Group, and looking at that alignment. So as we're putting these together, these certificates together, we'll be looking for that input. We refer to that as a built team. Capital B, capital I, capital L, capital T, business and industry leadership team. It's some of you would think, well, that's an advisory committee. It's slightly different than an advisory committee, but the point is that it has industry leadership involved in identifying what are the skills, competencies, and knowledges up front so that we can design the curriculum around that. And that'll be the goal, because we want to make sure that when the person graduates with that certificate, that they are going to have the skill sets, the skills, the competency, the knowledge to be able to secure employment, but more importantly than to be able to go back, and to many cases, the employer will probably pick up the cost of the student continuing their education. So we'll offset that debt as well. Other questions? Okay. Well, I know we're going to wrap up here. I kind of jokingly say, my wife always tells me, she says, Doug, when you go out and speak, she says, always remember the 3 B's. To be on time, to be brief, and to be seated. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be here, and I'll be glad to have any questions or private conversations with you. So thank you, everybody. Have a great day.